Welcome back, everybody. I know it's been a while. I apologize. Sorry, holidays got in the way and everything. Life happens. I was also slacking a bit. Nevertheless, we are back. We have finally, for most of us, crossed the Fantasy Football Championship. Hopefully, you won if you were in it. If not, you were real close. Next year, we got it. I got you. You got me. We're going to win it. I'll make the playoffs next year. But after what has been the craziest fantasy football season and football season in general, with the whole virus type thing, I don't want to say it or else I'll get shadow banned. I don't know how this platform works. It's bizarre to me. Whatever. I'm here with some takeaways, some observations, some reflections, if you would, some ponderances regarding this past fantasy football season. It was definitely one to remember. And these are just some things that I feel I should share with you guys that I've learned or have given more importance or value in my own mental process and thoughts regarding fantasy after this season. Real quick before we hop in, if you enjoy this type of content, you enjoy fantasy football, rankings, sit starts, trade targets, waiver wire targets, who to draft, who not to draft, all that type of fun stuff that comes with fantasy, leave a like and subscribe. Check out my other videos. I have more coming soon that definitely won't disappoint you. To kick off this list, I have hammer running backs early because quality running back depth is the most important thing in fantasy football. I say running backs in particular because those are a position where top end talent is just simply scarcer than pretty much every other position, maybe barring tight end because it's like Kittle or Kelsey, Kittle. That's pretty much it. But as we saw from this year, I can run you down real quick a bunch of these top end guys, first round talents, first round picks that got taken, got injured, or sucked, and it would be a very long list. C-Mac, hurt. Saquon, hurt. Elliott, fine, got hurt, busted when Dak was gone. Cook was banged out for a little bit. He's always a bit of an injury risk. Kamara and Henry were fine. Eckler was hurt. Chubb was hurt. Jacobs wasn't that great. Kenyon Drake was hurt for a little bit. Miles Sanders was hurt for a little bit. Clyde was hurt for a little bit, and he got stuck with Le'Veon Bell for some reason. All these guys we thought were going to be these really safe first-round, second-round picks. If the first-round pick didn't pan out, we had the second. If the second didn't pan out, we had the first. Hell, if you're like me, you went triple running back to start both of your drafts, and it was a calamitous failure. It was a very odd year. Do I think we're going to see another year like this again with injuries, where pretty much the entire top 10 or 12 is just plagued for the most part? No, but I think to go into next year with the approach that this can never happen again, I'm not going to really make running back depth, high level depth, a priority. I think that's a mistake. It's obviously, or at least hopefully, not going to be like this again next year, where like 3 of the top 5 picks were all hurt and sucked, but you need to be ready in case of emergency. I personally really liked my strategy going into the year of triple running back. I wasn't super rigid. I was willing to adjust. It just so happens that that was the strategy that gave me the most value and gave me the best core for my team at the time. It's not something I say you need to adopt, but I definitely hope that if you're a person who went 0 running back, 1 running back, even 2 running back, that's a very fine strategy. Going double running back is like the most textbook, safest thing you can do. I think you need to just really be cognizant of how important running back depth is in terms of that top end talent because there is a very big drop off from those RB1 guys to those RB2 guys. Sure, positions like receiver, like I said, have those top end guys, but there is a depth of talent at wide receiver. There are 15, 18 guys who can be solid plays here on a week in, week out basis. Running back really isn't the same. There is a very clear drop off between the ones and twos. All of that just to tell you guys, running back depth, that high quality depth, those guys you wouldn't be afraid to start as your RB1, RB2, that's important. Not saying go take 6 RBs in the first 6 rounds of your draft next year. Obviously, be a little bit flexible, be able to move and ebb and flow with the draft and how it goes. But make sure you keep in the back of your mind that in case there's an emergency, in case my first guy, in case my second guy gets hurt, hell, even if your third guy gets hurt, you want a guy that's serviceable enough to fill in for that guy and that guy and that guy. Hammer that RB depth. Don't reach for it if it's unnecessary. Like next year, don't be taking David Johnson in the 4th round because you want that 4th running back so bad. Obviously, play it smart, keep it cool, but don't forget how important it is to have high quality running back depth for your team. Next up, it's something I want to get more into at a later point in the season, or the off season, because it's over now. It's crazy. It's been 17 weeks, 16 weeks we made it. Is the narrative of wide receivers automatically falling off of this cliff once they switch teams. I'm not entirely sure what the precedent was for this. I think it was like Kelvin Benjamin and like Dwayne Bowe, Sammy Watkins, not very great receivers. This year, coming into the draft, all we heard from very prominent figures, I even listened to it, I'll admit it, I'll be the first one to hold my hand up and say I faded guys like Stephon Diggs, D-Hop, because I thought, new team, it's going to take forever, no training camp, it's just not going to work, I got to fade these guys, they're going to be reaches wherever you take them. Now, if you want to say no training camp is a fine thought to have, sure, but this whole narrative of wide receivers just being terrible as soon as they hit a new team just has to be thrown out the window. When you have guys that are as talented as Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins, and to a lesser extent a guy like Robbie Anderson, who didn't put up a ton of fantasy production to be a wide receiver one, was a very solid mid wide receiver two flex play most weeks for guys, and nobody expected that coming into the season. When these guys are talented, and even better, when they go to very good offenses where they're going to be either the alpha or just the main target hog, we can't just fade them because they're on a new team. Sometimes talent and just natural ability at being good at football wins out. We saw that this year. Like I said, Diggs, Hopkins, two guys that fell on draft boards because all you heard was fade them, fade them, fade them. New team, not going to go well. New team, not going to go that great. Who knows with Kyler? Who knows with Josh Allen? Who knows with Teddy Bridgewater to a lesser extent with Robbie Anderson? That narrative needs to go. And I feel like it's going to be something that's very prominent in this upcoming offseason. You have guys like Corey Davis, who really started to turn it on the middle end of the year, where people took notice. Allen Robinson, who has been the most undercover wide receiver one of the past 3 years I've ever seen. No one else produces like that, yet constantly flies under the radar in terms of draft production. Will Fuller, to an extent. It might have been the strange PED medication saga that helped him produce so well, but he was incredible every week you had him. He was basically a guaranteed touchdown. All of these guys, very talented, very good at football. If they go to new teams, like they most likely all will, I doubt the Titans re-signed Corey Davis to the heightened price tag. Allen Robinson and Will Fuller, I think, almost definitely want out of their respective teams. We can't buy into the narrative that these guys are going to fall off a cliff from their old production solely based on the fact that they're going to a new team. If anything, we have to let this benefit us. We have to let everyone around us get worried about something that clearly isn't that important anymore. They're going to let them fall. Allen Robinson, say he's a 5th-round pick, 4th-round pick, might slip to 5, 6, 7. That's an astounding value with a wide receiver one who's slipping all because of this old narrative that just simply doesn't make any sense anymore. Following that up, it's more kind of not obvious because this is something that kind of gets countered with the argument, well, if it worked, I'm going to do it again. But I'm very strongly in the belief that having a very strong process is something you will take every day of the week, even if it doesn't always provide you the best results. I would much rather go in, have a very strong process. Here's what I look at. Here's what I think is most important, least important when I'm deciding the draft, deciding the start, picking guys up, dynasty leagues, redraft, rookie draft, all that type of stuff. I would much rather go in with a very solid process that I trust, that I go by, that I refine, than just kind of wing it. Now, there's a difference between having a process and winging it and then having adaptability. You need to be able to move on the fly, like I said, for the first point with the running back injuries in a draft. You want that high-end depth, but if someone amazing falls to you, obviously you take them. But the main message here is that you need to get a process and stick to it. It might not always produce. You might find that you're not doing as well with it. But over time, if your process is strong enough and you're consistently going by the right criteria, the right decisions, matchup strength is one thing I can think of, production against this team in the past, how they've been doing recently, all this type of stuff. It's just things that I'm throwing out there to make the example a little more strong. But it's very, very important. It's so easy to just wing a decision one week or throw a random waiver wire guy into your lineup for the hell of it and have it work out. That's going to be the one you remember. You're not going to remember the other 9 times you throw a waiver wire guy in your lineup and you fucking bust unless it's in the playoffs or championship. You're going to remember that one time because, oh, it worked, it should be fine, then you keep doing it when it doesn't work. But if you get to a process and you stick to it throughout the season and don't let it falter, obviously adjust where needed, You can't just be rigid, but you have to go in with that very strong core process and move from there. I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive to go in with the process but be adaptable, but you have to have your plan A, but don't be unwilling to move away from it just a little bit, adjust here and there. All in all, come in, strong process, don't wing it, have a train of thought, have things you look at, have things you evaluate, have all of those in the back of your mind, and don't just go at it blind. Next up is something that I've recently started seeing a lot as I've kind of branched out into Twitter with this whole thing is that while it's very nice to have all of this content to have throughout the year to keep you prepped for the off season, keep it moving forward. Certain things like team mock drafts, I was just on Twitter and it really sparked this. Don't always buy into them and let them lead your decision making. What people are mocking to teams right now is almost certainly going to be wrong when it comes time for April. For example, let's say someone's mocking, I don't know, Kyle Trask to the Jets. And sure, you think that's an upgrade over Darnold, and you begin to adjust the values of all these players where you have them ranked, how you want to take them, and you don't budge from that early perception because you've had it set from right now. You saw a mock draft from like Fantasy Pros or PFF, one of those guys. Mock drafts at this point in the game are just to put Trevor Lawrence number one to the Jaguars and get attention and reads and clicks throughout the offseason. We're not in official peak draft season just yet. The regular season is really dying down. The college football season is starting to die down, especially for a lot of heavy prospects who have already opted out. So we're in this really odd dead period where there's not a ton of new information that can come out, and it's going to be a lot of just fantasy drafting, out of control, ridiculous things just to get you to read it. And I'm sure that not everyone is like this. There are obviously some very high quality ones out there, but don't take everything you see right now on a mock draft position especially and just hold it as law throughout the offseason. Even stuff from fantasy content creators. Things I say right now at the 29th, 30th of December might not be exactly how I feel in February, March, as things change, as things grow. So the bottom line here is don't take what you see right now and just hold to it and stick to it and treat it like gospel. Take it in, absorb it, evaluate it for what you think it's worth. If you think it's just some clickbait garbage that has Trevor Lawrence falling to 16, or if you think it's something valuable that could be useful throughout the year, whatever it is, don't just take everything you see at face value and hold it and let it guide your decision making and ideas for the rest of the offseason. It's far too early to let certain things like that become concrete bases for how you want to go about next season. My final takeaway, and you can call it more of an observation going into next year, and at some point when we get closer to actual draft season, because the fantasy season is literally still going for some people, mostly over, but literally still going, is that drafts next year, especially redraft dynasty, is a whole different beast. Redraft leagues are going to look very, very different than how they look this year. A lot of what you're going to see in popular media, just a prediction for me, from analysts with big names, big platforms, is that wide receiver is going to be the pick early. It's going to be the pick often. That position is going to be hammered early in a lot of drafts because you have all these running back injuries, like I've already mentioned, lack of production from some guys. If you look at the top 10, very talented guys, just a weird year, just a really weird year for the running back position. But at wide receiver, you have amazing talents. Devontae, Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones even coming off a rough year, A.J. Brown emerging, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Michael Thomas coming off an injury, Stephon Diggs, Will Fuller even, wherever he goes. All these guys, sure, I know Will Fuller might not have been the one to mention in that group, but you see where I'm going. The hype going into the offseason and into draft season is going to be about these receivers and the incredible performances they've had and how you're going to need to grab one of them to be competitive. That is not going to be the case. What's going to happen is a lot of these receivers are going to start to go early. Complete 180 from how last year was, where last year was hammer running back early and often, grab 3 in your first 3 picks, shit like that. I don't see that being the meta for a lot of people this year, for a lot of analysts. I feel like people are going to start grabbing out of that hype, that desire to have one of these big name breakout receivers, and that's going to cause a lot of this running back talent to fall. You could see a guy like Nick Chubb, who had a very good year based on efficiency and points per game, but missed 5-6 games due to injury. Same thing with Austin Eckler. Produced great when he was out in the field, was injured, and he's going to get overtaken in draft EDP by all these big name receivers who had breakout years and great years. Not to say that those receivers don't deserve to get drafted so early, some of them do, but there are going to be some breaches and there's going to be that top end group of receivers really rising very heavily in draft boards, and that's going to cause running backs to fall. You could see a guy realistically like Austin Eckler make it to the third. You could see a guy like Nick Chubb. I don't know if I see him getting to the third personally. If he's there, you fucking take that, you run, you don't look back. The overall point here is that moving into next year, I feel like what you're going to be seeing a lot from a lot of people, very respected people, platforms, other people, league mates, is that wide receiver is going to be the pick they want to make very early. And just like this past year, you're going to continue to hammer running back early and often because that's where the value is going to be. Sure, having a top end guy like DK Metcalf or Tyreek Hill would be really nice, but the importance of having a very good, very strong, and solid running back core cannot be understated. And when people rise, other guys have to fall. So that's going to leave the running backs in a very valuable position. You're going to be able to grab guys like Eckler, like Chubb, like C-Mac's not going to be a value. Barkley's not going to be a value. Zeke might be a value. I know he had a very rough year coming off an injury. He was very, very solid with Dak. He's been basically the same player. The offensive line has really been what's biting him in the ass, but he still managed to produce with Dak. I can see him slipping. That's a big name you don't really expect to see fall, but I could see guys like Devontae, Tyreek, Michael Thomas, maybe DK if you have a league where a guy just loves DK Metcalf. I could see him slipping into the tail end of the first, high end second. And if you manage to get into a league where your second round pick is Ezekiel Elliott next year, you're going to be golden. That's just one example. Like I said, there's other guys. Moral of the story is that when people rise, other people have to fall. And with what I see going to be the newfound hype around the wide receiver position going into next year, running backs are going to fall, and that is where all the value is going to be in the early rounds of your drafts. You'll hammer running back early, you'll get your guys, and there will still be, just like there was this past year, very solid receivers to pick from rounds 4 through 8. Throw a tight end in there, throw a quarterback in there, depending on how you draft. Running back value is going to be there, and it's going to be there a lot in early rounds this year in drafts. Just calling it now. That's going to be it for today's video. Sorry again for the hiatus. School was winding down, had some assignments left to do. Holidays had me busy. Got the new PS5 and playing that more than I'd like to admit, honestly. But now I should really be able to just commit more to this, create more content, churn more out, be there for you guys. I know we're kind of in that dead point right now with fantasy. We're a little too far from the combine, the draft, and mock drafts, but the regular season is kind of dying down. But I'm still going to be here looking at player profiles, how I feel about guys going into next year. Going to have some rankings out at some point. Guys that I think will be values, think will be steals, guys I'd stay away from. All that type of fun off-season content. We'll have some mock drafts in there, show you what my process is like going through that, how I would approach drafts this coming year. I'm going to have all that coming for you guys. I really want to make this off-season and next season a great one for me and us. As much as I'm out here just making videos or whatever, it's you guys that keep me going. I love being able to be in a position where I can help people make the right decisions, and just talk about something I love for a little bit every day. That's pretty much it. Hope you won the chip. Enjoy the new year and your family and the holidays. That's going to be it, guys. Peace out.